And then we're going to ask a few more questions. What it would mean for you to get involved or more involved in LTR. And then towards the end, we're going to introduce some opportunities that we have for you, including some travel fellowships that we have available for undergrads to go to the All Scientists meeting coming up in October, and then some other opportunities and kind of wrap up at the end. So that's kind of a quick overview. And my next slide, I think, is some tips on how to participate. So all of you are muted. If you can't hear, check your speakers. And if you still can't hear, if you're having trouble, I think the best way is probably to type something in the chat room. Jennifer Cassell, who's listed on your screen, is in the network office with Sam, and she's kind of in the background monitoring the chat and will be able to help with problems. If you have questions that you want to ask, we ask that you use the Q&A button that's towards the bottom of your screen, or at least it's toward the bottom of my screen. It might be somewhere else depending on your format. When you use the chat, just be aware that the default is that the chat goes to everybody. And so think about that before you type something that you didn't mean to go to everybody. And if you want the chat to go to a particular person, you're able to direct it in when you open that window. And then we'll be giving you some polls that will ask you to type in answers. And Sam, did we resolve the multiple user issue, or is this going to have to be one answer per group?
It'll have to be one answer per group.
Yeah.
Unless we have multiple people logged into their own computers.
Right. So those of you at Andrews and Harvard Forest, and I don't know if there's other groups participating, if you're on your individual computers, you can respond to the polls individually. If you're all using one computer, then we're just going to get one answer, and that's not going to be as interesting, but that's the best we could do this first time around with the polling function that we have available. And then a couple of, since the polling function in Zoom only allows for multiple choice type questions, we have some open-ended questions, and when those come up, we'll ask you to type your answers in the question and answer box. Okay, so that's some logistics. And we're ready for the poll. So we're going to start asking you questions, and presumably Sam's going to make these poll questions come up. This is, you're seeing on the screen here, these are all the questions we're going to ask you over the next few minutes. So here they are. So I guess I'll read them and give you a little bit of time, and then I'll read some more. So what LTR site were you or are you associated with? And just to remind, or maybe to point out to folks, we invited people who were REU students at LTR sites last year in 2017 and who are currently associated with an LTR site. So we're asking you to enter your answer in the Q&A box. And the dummy answer to fool dumb software. Okay, Sam, I got that one. So please type your answer in the Q&A box. I see answers are coming in. That's great. Wow. This is cool. Sorry. As they're coming in, I'm going to read them. Morea in 2017, Kanza, Sebieta, Carey Institute, Florida Coastal Everglades, Kellogg Biological, H.J. Andrews, Harvard Forest, 6 students, Kellogg Biological, Plum Island, Morea. Here's an ABCRC, which I don't understand. Virginia Coastal, another ABCRC. Is that, Sam, am I missing what that one is?
I missed that, but I will have
ABCRC, to. Maybe Elizabeth Daly or Maya Wheeler can type in what that acronym stands for. It's a new one.
ABCRC is VCR.
Okay, great. So we have Central Arizona, Phoenix, KBS, California Coastal. Wow, we have much bigger diversity than I thought we would get. Sevietta, Anheuser-Busch Coastal Research Center, a couple people from there. Oh, that's the VCR, it's the name of their center. Yep. Okay. So when we get to Kay's presentation about the LTR, there's 28 sites. I think we have maybe 20 sites here, 18 sites. That's a pretty amazing diversity. So thank you. The second question, which of the following topics is closest to your LTR-based research project? And I guess, Sam, they have 3 choices here.
That is correct.
So you can choose one that your topic is one of the 5 core themes of LTR, which are listed there. Human dimensions or other. So go ahead and enter your answer to that, and Sam will magically let your answers appear to us. Sam, is that?
Waiting for some people to continue taking the poll. Unfortunately, this is one poll, so we'll have to kind of run through the whole thing. I can give you some feedback once we're done.
So we can't do it one at a time. Okay, so I'll go on to the next question. Yep. People can be filling out the poll. So which of the following research approaches is closest to the main approaches you are using or that you used in your LTR-based research? So description, comparison in the field, experimentation in the field, experimentation in the greenhouse or lab, simulation or mathematical modeling, data mining, analysis of existing data, or theory. And then there's an other. So think about your research and which of these is closest to describing your approach. And if you're annoyed at me for not having all kinds of combinations, then that's good. And I guess you can click other or pick the one that's best. The next question is, in your opinion, how long does a research project need to be long-term? So we call this the long-term ecological research network. How long is long-term? 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, 3 decades, 3 centuries? Kay, you're going to be talking about this, and just while they're answering this, I don't think this gives away anything. There was a discussion at the book meeting about the LTR that we really need to talk about really long term. So beyond long term, something called really long term. I don't know if that's going to, that's going to catch on, but we'll see. Okay, the next question is, how many LTR sites have you visited? And the choices are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or more.
Alan, if you answered that question, which one did you pick?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It's not that many.
I have 5 or more.
No, I don't have 5 or more. Well, Sevietta.
Hi everyone, this is Mark. I one on purpose, one on accident. I mean, I work at one, and then the other one, I went to the University of Wisconsin for my master's degree, which is the home of the North Temper Lakes LTR. So
great. So the next question is a Q&A using the Q&A box. Sam has some nice multiple choices for us here. Very binary, Sam. Anyway, so what is one thing you'd most like to learn about the LTR network? And if you could type that in to the Q&A box, that'll be great. And we are going to be looking at your Oh, we're already seeing some answers. This is great. Hmm. Hmm. Great.
Hey guys, this is Jen. I just want to remind you attendees to go ahead and click on the poll for the questions that you can answer on the poll. So it looks like only 4 of you have responded and we have 30 online. So go ahead and answer some of those questions within the poll.
So Jennifer, are they seeing exactly what I'm paging us through, or do they have the ability to page through the poll?
They should be seeing the poll, and
can they scroll, like I'm scrolling up and down right now? Can they scroll up and down with the poll, or are they?
In the poll, they should be able to scroll up and down. Yeah, that's what I think. But
okay.
Yep.
So thank you for chiming in about that. So for the participants, and I haven't been giving you very good instructions in this cross-site REU box with the poll questions, you should be able to scroll up and down. And for the things that are not Q&A answers, you should be clicking in one of those little boxes to make your choice.
And we're getting some great good responses in the Q&A.
Yep, yep.
While we're waiting, this is Clarice. I'll just say that I've been to 7 LTER sites.
Whoa.
That's what's cool about working in LTER. There are reasons that you get to visit places.
I've been to 8.
Wow.
Well, some of them were site visits, so.
Right. Okay. The next question, which of the following would you consider doing? And oh, Sam, is this for the second half?
Oh,
Question 7? I think it is.
Yep,
okay, so we're gonna stop the Q&A here and actually get back on time. So before I stop so we're gonna come back to the poll and start. If you've already answered 7, that's fine, but we're gonna come back to the poll. So actually, I'm gonna X out of the poll for myself, and then is somebody kind of taking a look at so some people want to learn about Wonder Woman, opportunities going to research after graduating, become more involved, what other LTR students are studying at other sites, the 5 core theme areas. So I hope that we do a good job of Sam, you just made them all disappear?
I put them in the answered section so everybody can see.
Oh, I see. Yep. Oh, cool. Thank you. So if folks are new at this like I am, the Q&A box has an open choice or an answered choice, and all people's answers are in the answered choice. And that's great. So thank you. Okay, so we're now going to go on to Kay. So I'm turning things over to Kay. And Kay, take it from here.
Okay, so I'm going to try and give an overview of what is the LTR, and I guess more importantly for this meeting is what makes it a network. And I think that's one of the things that makes this whole enterprise quite differently. It's not just research at a single lab or a single institution. It really is an effort to be a network, and that's why we feel this is important. We want the undergraduates who are getting involved in the LTR to feel like they're part of a network. So next slide. Okay, so the network was first established in 1980, and I'll show you in a future slide sort of the demography of sites coming in and out. There are currently 28 sites. They're primarily in the US, but as you can see from the map to the left, they go from Alaska down to Antarctica, coastal, interior, continental, and even oceanic. And they represent a broad range of ecosystems. And I think that, again, is one of the things that makes it interesting because of the potential to do comparative work. There are literally thousands of investigators involved. Many work at universities or colleges. Some are associated with federal or state agencies, and others with NGOs. We are a research enterprise, and so we generate data, and an important thing about the data, we make it public and accessible, and there are over 6,000 data sets, and some of you are maybe creating or working with existing data sets, and clearly many of you have been reading some of the 16,000 journal articles that have been written about or by LTR scientists. Next slide. So this is just a pictorial introduction to the diversity of habitats and sites. And I don't know if we have anyone here from Antarctica, but I did hear we had someone from REU here. But I think to be able to have the potential to visit such a large number of sites and have scientists from all these different areas coming together, from the deepest part of the ocean to Florida coastal Everglades, to Antarctica, and even urban sites, creates a lot of challenges, but also opportunities for people to talk about the ecological processes and how they work in different environments. Next. Next. So what I want to do here is, with these gorgeous pictures as a backdrop, is talk a little bit about what makes this an LTR. Obviously long-term, but there are observations of a single or a small number of sites for a long time, and maintaining those records about some key variables that are important for ecosystem function for a long time is really important for interpreting what are the consequences or contexts in which we understand short-term studies and make comparisons, but also gives us the potential and power to make predictions about what might happen in the future by getting a record of what's happened in the past. Next. But observations alone are mainly correlative, and so all of the LTRs have various kinds of experimental manipulations going on. They are designed to test mechanisms on ecosystem change that are relative to that site. Those experiments help you get at mechanisms and can help also parameterize models. But importantly, many of the sites have similar or the same experiments, and that's one of the things that I think makes us unique, is we have the potential to compare results of a similar experiment across a lot of different sites. Next. Because these places are in place for so long, and the scientists often are there for a long time, there's a capacity for the people working at LTR sites to build relationships with resource managers, educators, and landowners in their area, and help understand what are the environmental or ecological challenges or misunderstandings they feel are important, and begin to help them address that. And some of the topics that can sometimes results in some misunderstanding is climate change. What's that mean? How do I do it? And having a relationship with scientists in your neighborhood or in your area that understand your system can really help on transferring knowledge from basic research into real problems. So the LTR, as it brings together people with a common interest at a particular site, they have diverse backgrounds, they have diverse tools. It clearly is multi or interdisciplinary research. New tools are always being developed and explored here. And sometimes these are old tools. I have to say there's nothing wrong with clipping biomass with a pair of shears and putting the biomass into a bag and weighing it. But being able to understand what might be the genetic composition of the soil microbial community is a different way of approaching things today than we might have used when I was in graduate school. So these long-term ecological and environmental studies that are fundamental to the LTR allow us to understand the natural variability in systems and to look at patterns and trends and discern what they might be driving them, to find rare events or repetitive rare events, and to get some idea of what might be these unanticipated ecological surprises, and importantly, work with people to translate and help them understand the environments around them. So here's a slide that I mentioned before, sort of reflects the demography of the sites. I said that the LTR was formed in 1980. So you see the timeline of sites across the top. What this graphic also does is show you that there are a broad range of habitats, but some similar ones. So if you're working at the Andrews, you should know that there are other forested sites in the LTR network. Loquillo is a tropical site. Harvard Forest is a deciduous forest in the Northeast, and so are the same kinds of processes going on there that you see where you are. I myself have been involved in a number of projects where grassland sites have been compared, and there are a lot of things that are different about shortgrass steppe and the Kanza Prairie and the Kellogg Biological Station, but they're all dominated by similar life form, and turns out similar abiotic processes are important in creating the communities that we see on the landscape today. So one of the things that pulls our LTR scientists together is there's a sort of 5 core areas that all sites must address. So I have to say, we don't always address them in the same way, but it helps create the foundation for doing comparative cross-site research for people to say, yeah, we know something about organic matter and primary productivity. We know here are the populations we study in our site, whether they be insects or fish or microorganisms. We know something about the movement of inorganic nutrients through soil and groundwater, whether they're talking about moving through a stream and lake ecosystem, a forest ecosystem, or an urban ecosystem. And across these sites are different kinds of disturbances. I'm at the KBS LTR, we plow up things, and that's a pretty significant disturbance to a plant terrestrial community. But like the Kanza, we also burn to maintain some of the grassland communities. Other sites are flooded, other sites have been hit by hurricanes, and recently have been hit by hurricanes hard. And those episodic disturbances might be very important in structuring the communities that are there, and quite different from the periodic disturbances like annual tillage, for example, that we have on the LTR. So the LTR science includes different ways of approaching answers to questions, and one of these is the observational approach. The core data sets at each site, often taking place over decades, are with a standard methodology measuring things at particular sites in a particular way for a long time. Now, people may measure things at slightly different scales. We use meter squares for productivity. That might not work if you're talking about a forested system. But we know something about what might be the appropriate scale to study those variables so that we can make comparisons both within and across sites. LTR science also includes experimentation. The fact that these sites are under the purview or control of a group of scientists for a long time allows us to set up controlled experiments that we know we can maintain for a long time. So I've been involved in experiments here that have been going on since the project began for almost 30 years. There are classic experiments that are done at some of the sites like Hubbard Brook and Cedar Creek. So warming plots at Harvard Forest, but there are other sites that have put up warming experiments. There are long-term decomposition experiments occurring at many sites throughout the network, and nutrient addition experiments occur not only at Toolik Lake, but at KBS and at Kanza and Cedar Creek and the Jornada, and that's allowed us to look at some generalities across sites from those experiments. So modeling is also an important part of an LTR, and modeling can take place in different ways. There can be conceptual models. You try and graphically display what you think is going on, what's important. There can be simulation models. You develop a parameterization of what you think is important, and mathematical models. And all 3 of these can be used to develop predictions that we can use to compare or motivate experimental studies and test both with experimental and long-term observations. Cross-site comparisons provide a way for us to test models and hypotheses in a way that's very important because we can go beyond the parameter range that occurs at our site. For example, soil moisture might be identified as an important driver in a model, but if your site is always dry, and you might get a very different sort of intuition about how moisture variability is affecting your site when you're compared to more mesic site like the Harvard Forest or the Kellogg Biological Station. And as I mentioned at the beginning, these long-term data sets are being maintained because they are very valuable for both developing and testing models, both by LTR and other scientists. And this, by the way, if any of you are from NIWAT, this is the conceptual and predictive model developed by NIWAT Ridge to look at how temporal variability in climate drivers may be creating very different kinds of communities over time. So LTR science includes synthesis. So we bring together data not only from our own sites, but by comparing results across sites. And NCEAS in Santa Barbara was a very important resource for many LTR scientists over the last couple of decades in terms of synthesizing results from these different sites and also from other non-LTR sites. Because the data need to be useful, have to be taken care of and curated, the LTR Network Office really assists with that curation and archiving in these data sets. They're also made publicly available, and because they're publicly available, working groups can draw in data from many different sites, not just from their own site. And because they can do that and have it, the synthesis from LTR data have inspired lots of different and new research projects going, some at the LTR sites and some beyond that. So LTR science also includes communicating science to society, and I think this is a new and very important aspect of the LTR, and at least at the KBS side, I know we talk to our REUs a lot about this. Being able to share what you've learned, not just your passion, but the findings with different kinds of people is important, whether they be neighbors, or your parents, or regional decision makers, or the news media. And LTR scientists have become very good at communicating the relevant aspects of their research so that it can shape policy locally, state, and at the federal level. And the Network's Communication Office helps us do that well by providing workshops in scientific communication. And you'll find if any of you go to national meetings, that's often a very important part of a national meeting now, is to help scientists be better at communicating their science. Now, our site has not participated in the Ecological Reflections Network, but we have had some artists in residence. And I think it's very exciting to see the basic scientists and the LTR beginning to explore how artists and writers, creative writers, can help us communicate and explore our science to different audiences. So what helps make an LTR work really well is partnerships. We work to engage other networks at the national level. Some of you may have heard of NEON. There's an international LTR network where data is shared so that people can understand how context can affect results and understandings. We also share experiences. How did it work for you to set up warming experiments? What did you find out were big problems when you put your flux towers up? And what is the perspective that you find is important both among the scientists at your site but also in the disciplines that you're in? Importantly, LTR scientists are very deeply involved in education. You are this evening working with some people at the LTR Network office and throughout that are deeply committed to education and outreach, from K-12 through undergraduate and graduate education, and also in working with each other to develop novel ways of teaching science. And the data nuggets that's mentioned here is actually a way of presenting the actuality of science to teachers and students. It was first developed by 2 graduate students at the Kellogg Biological Station who were working with the LTR. And now this has grown into a national organization where people can upload their data and work with professionals to get it set up in a way that teachers can use it to teach science effectively.
So, Kay, there may be some questions from the audience. I thought maybe we could take a minute or so.
All right.
So people want to type their questions into the Q&A?
Exactly.
That would be good, or they can type it into the chat, either way.
Well, you can type in the Q&A. I can read it to you, Kay, or vice versa, and
okay.
Set up. So if anybody has a question, please feel free to type in the Q&A. Maya Wheeler asks, how were the LTR sites chosen?
So that's a really good question. I think there's 2 answers to that question. One is when there's a call for an LTR, it's usually in a particular area or biome. So we, KBS, competed for an interest in supporting an LTR in agricultural systems. Others have looked at marine systems. And so when that call goes out for an LTR in a particular biogeographic or kind of area, then people write proposals and compete for that. And that is reviewed by a panel at the National Science Foundation, and one is selected from that. And then those proposals get reviewed every 3 years and renewed every 6 years. So it's a very competitive and rigorous process.
Thank you. Nico asks, Kay, how did you get involved in the LTR?
Well, I was on the faculty at Ohio State, and my husband was offered a job at Michigan State at the Kellogg Biological Station, and unknown to me, they had just competed successfully for an LTER, and one of the comments from the review panel was, you need more plant ecologists involved. So they called me up, and they said, well, if you're coming with Gary, would you like to be involved? So it was quite by accident. But I've stayed involved since 1987, and I guess that's been more intentional then.
Indeed. Sabrina asks, if you want to get involved with a specific site, is there a way to do that?
Yes, and one of the things we'll be talking about is the All Scientists meeting. That's one way you can learn about who's various places. I actually just go onto the websites of different sites and I look to see what they're doing, and you can find through the directory of who's there. Also through professional meetings like the Ecological Society meeting, there are often LTR sessions or sites will be presenting work, and then you can find out who's there. But each site has a very informative website that will list what the overarching hypotheses are, what the thematic areas are, and who's there.
Indeed. Jennifer asks, what are the overarching goals of the LTR REU program?
Well, that's a really good question, Jennifer.
Indeed,
so I think well, let me just start, and then I'm going to let Alan go to that. The first thing is we want always to get undergraduates involved in scientific experiences, and LTRs are a very visible way to do that. And so the National Science Foundation, recognizing that, has funded sites for many years to have 2 or 3 students work at them. What you're being a part of right now is, I think, a new and bigger initiative to get REU students involved in a different way than we ever have before. And so, Alan, with that, I'm going to pass it to you. All right?
Yeah, that's great. So I think the kind of the answer I want to give is you tell us. In other words, we're really excited about asking what can we accomplish by sharing across sites. So this is our first time doing that with a virtual session, and this is just a 1 hour, and we're going to hopefully stimulate some new ideas, and we hope that you'll share them with us in the chat, and that you'll be getting a survey tomorrow about this session. And one of the questions that I'll ask is for your ideas of what kinds of opportunities. Our group within LTR has talked about programs where students might go to 2 sites during the summer, or to several sites during the summer, or where students at different sites might coordinate research across sites during a summer program. So these are some of the ideas that we have. And part of why we're doing this program right now is leading up to the All Scientists meeting that happens every 3 years within LTR. And the All Scientists meeting is probably one of the single most important times where some of the cross-site synthesis that Kay was talking about kind of gets started. People from the separate sites get together and you say, oh, you're measuring this, I'm measuring this, maybe we should measure it together or coordinate. So what we're hoping to do at this coming All Scientists meeting is bring some undergraduates and some mentors working with undergraduates together and ask exactly the question that you asked. What can we do with an LTR effort, with an REU type effort across LTR sites? So I know that I'm not, maybe I'm giving you some answers to your question, but I'm kind of answering your question with another question. And I think then what we're going to do now, since I'm looking at the time, is we're going to jump into the poll. Oh, we're not jumping into the poll yet.
Oh, sorry. That was a misclick on my part, Alan. I apologize.
Okay.
I will put the poll back up for you.
Yeah, so we're going to get the poll back up. This is going to ask you some questions. You've heard a little bit about LTR, maybe not enough to answer these questions, but we don't want to talk at you the whole time, and we can't listen to 40 of you at the whole time. So this is why we're doing the polls. So if we go back to question number 7, that kind of asks you, which of the following would you consider doing? So return to the same LTR site as an undergrad or as a graduate student, return to the same LTR site as a research assistant, go to a different LTR site, either as an undergrad, graduate student, or research assistant, explore a project across 2 or more LTR sites. And Sam, can they do multiple of these or just one?
That's a great question, Ellen, and we shall find out shortly. I think it's just one, unfortunately. I think so.
So you'll have to choose. And then the last 2 questions are open-ended. So these you'll type in the Q&A. So what's one reason why you might be interested in LTR? And that's something that this will help us think about the topic that we were just talking about in terms of what can we do together, and what's one concern that you might have about getting involved in LTR. So those are our last 2 questions, and then maybe we'll give you a little bit of a chance to answer them Sam, are you pulling those, taking a look at those?
Yes, and they're coming in. And Julie Dahl just let me know that students can choose more than one answer. So
if you go back to poll question 7, you can do multiple answers.
And Jennifer Wheeler asked, she had submitted an answer to question 7 in the first round of polling. I think, go ahead and do it again, if you can, Jennifer.
If you can do it. We're not doing rigorous research here. We want as many answers and as much information as possible. So thank you for bearing with us as we figure this out. So Sam, you want to share us any of the responses? Oh,
one just came in. I believe this is in response to question 8. Sabrina says, to gain more experience working with different people, different types of ecosystems. And she said, it's not clear to me as to where to find job/REU positions across the site. So it's a great question.
Right. As you're looking at this, Sam, it's your network office does have information that's kind of across the network for some job opportunities and some educational opportunities, right? So
yes, there's a science newsletter that's posted, and the last slide of the presentation will be a spot, the URL where you can sign up for it, so you can have updates come to your email inbox.
Also, for those who are still undergraduates, there is a whole section under education for undergraduate research opportunities, and that's mostly REU programs, but there are some other opportunities.
Yes,
on the network website.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I'm gonna suggest that what do we got? 15 minutes? Yeah, I think we probably should.
Yep. So what I'll do right now is end the poll, and so what everybody should be able to see.
Can we see the results? That'll be fun.
Everybody, hurry up! I see some people last minute typing in. So type furiously. You have until I quit this this vamping for another 12 seconds. We have about 13 people answering so far. I want us to get up to half. So if we can, a few more people can hit submit, that'd be great. We have a lot of great questions coming in from the Q&A site, and I'll move those over to the answer section shortly, and we will use this information to hopefully better the program. So I'm hitting end poll right now, and you should all see a bit of a pop-up window that has some data coming up.
Really?
Maybe a short leg.
No. Oh, great.
Vamp another second while it's presenting.
So what LTR site, we saw that one. The topics, so most of the people are working on the 5 core areas. None of the people on this call are working on human dimensions. 7% are working on other. In terms of methods, we have about a third, a little bit more than a third, doing comparative work in the field. Another 36% doing experimentation in the field. No greenhouse or lab folks. A few folks are doing simulation modeling. Some folks are doing data mining. And some folks are doing other, and I apologize because we probably didn't have a explain option this time around. But so that's actually kind of gives you an interesting kind of snapshot in the kinds of research people are doing. And then in terms of how long is long, I guess you folks kind of lean towards, well, at least 3 years and maybe 3 decades. So you found out after you filled this out that the LTR network is almost 40 years old. And some of the sites were actually going before they became LTR sites. So I think Hubbard Brook is maybe hitting 50 years. I don't know which of the other sites have really longer than even the 40 years. Maybe Andrews does. So most people have just visited one site, and a few visited a bunch, 2, 3. One person's visited 5 or more. That's pretty impressive. You got a lot of people voting for Wonder Woman. And here's the things that people would consider doing. And actually, it looks like there's a lot of people like this idea of exploring a project across 2 or more sites. That's really interesting to me, folks. So this, you've already made my day in terms of me learning something I didn't know about what you folks would be interested in. So this is really totally cool.
Alan, this
Yep.
is Jen. Nick Jeffries had a question that got moved over to answered, but I thought maybe you guys could handle it. His question is, how do most people get started with working with an LTER?
My suspicion is that a lot of people start either as a graduate student or as a research technician, but we're hoping that the answer to that is more and more REU. We don't have data, for instance, of the current, like there's going to be 600 people at the All Scientists meeting. And it'd be interesting to ask them that question, kind of how did you first get involved? And my hunch is that maybe 20% would say as an REU, as an undergrad, 20% would say as a research assistant, maybe 40% would say as a graduate student, and maybe 20% would say as a faculty. So I don't know if I have that quite right, but maybe So I think the door is open at any time. I think that's probably one of the most important messages. In other words, there's lots of opportunities. There are big projects. They last a long time. And at any given time, there's almost always opportunities for students to get involved in a formal way or in an informal way. In Baltimore, we have a bunch of students that are in universities in the Baltimore area that come to our annual meeting. And they get involved that way. And that's a way for them to kind of begin to make connections and become involved. So Sam, what's the next slide? So this is actually answering a little bit more formally some of the things that were just asked. So every LTR site has funding for 2 REUs. There's 28 sites. I think Sam found that there's 4 sites that have actual full programs with 10 or 12 students. That's Andrews, Lukio, Kellogg, and what's the 4th? Harvard Forest. Okay, and then in addition, most of the other sites have money for REU type students. And then others have money for undergrads in some other capacity. And so what our vision is that this LTR REU program is going to figure out ways that we can collaborate, sharing ideas the way we're doing now through virtual seminars, connecting students with each other through research. Right now we have 2 students that are doing research that involves Harvard Forest and Kellogg Biological. We have undergrads that are doing that work this very summer. They could be on the call. I don't know their names, so they might be participants. And we have lots of opportunities. You can hit the next slide, Sam, to show these arrows for the kinds of connections that are shown here. And we want to support you in figuring out what those are. So next slide, please. Oh, there's our question. Yeah. So Sam, you want to talk about we did those questions. So Sam, you want to talk about the All Scientists meeting?
Sure, that'd be great. So we've been talking about ways that students can become more involved with the LTR and increase their involvement and access to the information. And I think one of the exciting ways that can happen is come to the All Scientists meeting. The All Scientists meeting happens every 3 years. And it's as Kay and Alan have talked about it, it's a wonderful time for LTR scientists, researchers, education experts, information managers, graduate students to come together and to share successes, best practices, challenges, and to really develop a sense of community and work through workshops and have some wonderful plenary speakers as well. So you might ask, how can I attend ASM as an undergrad REU student? And we have a a fellowship available for 15 students that would provide an all expenses paid support to travel to Silmar, California. We'd pay for poster printing for your poster presentation, and food, and etc. And if you're selected to be a travel fellow, you'd be able to attend another virtual session to give more information about the meeting. You'd be hopefully aligned with your meeting mentor. So mentors would be assigned to you to help you maximize your access to the meetings, introduce you to other faculty and graduate students, help you navigate the meeting. And while you're at ASM, you'd be able to obviously meet and discuss science and the future possibilities of your academic or career with faculty and scientists, graduate students. You'd be able to present a poster at a meeting, attend workshops. And what I wanted to also mention is that ASM has a different, it's much more collaborative than other national meetings. And so there's a real sense of working together to achieve the goals here of the LTER. And so a little bit of who's eligible to apply. If you're an REU student, an LTER associated REU student from 2017 or 2018, you can apply. And if you're unsure of your eligibility, please contact your mentor or the REU program administrator to verify. So I hate to have anybody not apply who could. So if in doubt, please check. And the email that we sent out last week to register for this webinar has a link for the application page. Here's a link as well. And this PowerPoint will be sent out along with the survey tomorrow. So don't worry about writing down URLs, etc. A couple important dates to remember: the applications are due August 10th, and you should hear back about 12 days later if you've been selected. The application page looks something like this: a simple Google form. They'll be asking you for a 500-word application, along with a CV and your mentor contact information. We'll be asking them a few simple questions about you and your work. And so I really encourage folks who are interested to apply or inquire or talk to us for more information if you'd like. ASM is a wonderful chance for you to meet and work with some excellent researchers and undergraduate students. And there are some other opportunities for REU students as well. For example, the NSF Bio REU travel grant. So you can have travel funding to attend a conference of your choice. And I think that funds about one student per biology REU per year. Again, here's the URL, which will be made available to everybody. There's also the NSF REU Symposium. So you could travel to Alexandria, Virginia in October and present a research poster, meet graduate students and go to a recruitment fair and participate in developmental workshops. And maybe Alan, if you can also jump in on this one, you know much more about SEEDS than I do.
So I guess we should have a poll. How many people know? So SEEDS is a program of the Ecological Society to work with undergraduate students to bring a diverse pool of undergraduates into the discipline of ecology. And SEEDS has a SPUR fellowship, which is a research fellowship that students can apply for. You get paired with a mentor from within the Ecological Society membership. You get to participate in a leadership meeting. You get to participate in the Ecological Society's annual meeting, and different institutions are affiliated with the SPUR fellowships. So there's several field stations. My institute, the Carey Institute in New York, is a SEEDS SPUR institution. So it's a good resource for students that are really interested in pursuing a research project and participating in kind of a community of fellow students.
Yeah, thank you, Ellen. It's a great program. And highly recommend if you're interested to apply. And so we talked about this briefly before, but all these opportunities and other information about the LTER network are available on the LTER website. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the website, please go to take a look. You can find a simple page to look at every single site of the network, contact information for the PIs, the information managers, the education outreach committee members, graduate students, links. And so, yeah, so please look at the website. You can look up anybody you'd like to on the directory. And hopefully you can continue to share your information and your knowledge and interest with your other REU students. So here's just a page of the LTER website, and you can sign up for updates and newsletters on the site as well. So I'd highly recommend that all the students go here and please sign up and stay connected and become a much more integral part of the network.
So Sam, I'd like to ask a question that we can't poll, but maybe we can do it by having people raise their hands. I have no idea how to do this, by the way. And that is, how many of the participants in this talk have talked to their mentors about attending any kind of a national meeting following their summer research experience?
Lots of hands.
Okay. Because I think what's important is this All Scientists meeting is specifically a group of LTR scientists, and we're excited to have the funding for 15 students to go. We've had very few, if any, undergraduates go, but I just want people to know that this will be competitive, and there will be other ways that you can get together with LTR scientists and explore some of these things. So be sure you talk about that. In addition to the things Sam has noted, other professional organizations other than the Ecological Society provide travel grants for undergraduates to go to a national meeting to present their work. I know the Evolution Society does. I know the American Society of Limnology and Oceanography does. I know that the Botanical Society does. So if you are interested in going to a national meeting, you can talk to your mentor, but look on those websites. And I would also, when you go back to your home institution may have funding to help you go to a national meeting. And boy, if you can get $500 from your department and $250 from somebody else, pretty soon you've got a $1,500 nest egg that you can use to go to a meeting. And I think putting that package together is a really important thing for you to do. I would also say, once you've got that package together, go back to your mentor and say, hey, I'm $500 short from going to this meeting. Can the LTR help me? And they may. I won't say they will, but they may.
Sam, you've got an open question about.
Yeah, I was waiting for a second here to toss this out. So we have a question. An anonymous attendee asked, if they're not part of the LTR but are still interested, can we attend ASM?
So I think that the travel fellowships are specifically for REU, LTR-based REU students, and that's a function of the funding source. So if you're so it sounds like the student that asked this might not be eligible for the travel fellowships, but you still might be able to find a way to come to the meeting. So for instance, the bio REU money that Sam mentioned is for any bio REU student, whether they're at, like, the Rocky Mountain Biological Lab is not a LTR site, but those fellowships are usable to go to the All Scientists meeting. So you might be able to find other ways to go to the All Scientists meeting. I'm gonna take the chair's prerogative here. I hate doing this because I have the sense that we probably could keep answering questions for a long time, but I'm going to honor the commitment I made to you at the beginning that we were going to end. To me, it's 8 o'clock, but I want to say the last thing said next steps. So I'm just going to real quickly review what the next steps are. You're going to get a survey from us tomorrow, along with resource links to either the actual PowerPoint or links to the PowerPoint. So in other words, we're going to make the PowerPoint available to you, and we're going to have a survey, and the survey is going to be some combination of this session and how could we make this session. There are going to be questions on the survey that are about LTR, the LTR RU program. What do you think we should be doing? What are you, so there, we're going to look at your answers to the polls during this and finalize the survey we send you tomorrow. So we're going to be collecting your input. You can apply for the All Scientists Meeting fellowships, and you can check with your mentors. Since it's a brand new thing, you might want to check with Sam because he knows about it maybe more than your mentor does. And the students that come to the All Scientists Meeting are going to have incredible opportunity to network with scientists, network with each other, network with graduate students, and also help us think about what should we do next summer with REU across LTRs. What kinds of virtual sessions, what kinds of resources can we make available on our website? What kinds of coordinated research projects can we do? So we're going to be talking about that at the All Scientists Meeting. And then, use the links that Sam has included here, both to find out more about LTR and to find out more about other opportunities for continuing your research and your exploration of an academic career. So with that, Jennifer, is there a, okay, so Clarice, who's one of the other organizers, who's been in the background, has been posting our bios and stuff. She says, thank you all for attending and for your wonderful questions and ideas. They're all really important and to making LTR a better resource for undergraduate students. And I think that we all share that. So does anybody else want to say anything before we conclude? So I'm gonna clap for Sam. I know that you guys can't clap, I guess, whatever. There you go. Thank you, folks.